to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, Terrence.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Jackson Township Planning Board November 4th meeting. This meeting has been appropriately noticed in all the appropriate forums and fashions and places according to the Open Public Meetings Act. And I will pass it off to you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. We'll have a roll call, please.
Mr. Bernstein, Mr. Marzo, Mr. Heller,
Here.
Mr. Riker,
Here.
Ms. Rose, Mr. Tremor,
Here.
Mr. Weingart, Mr. Wall, Mr. Sullivan,
Here.
Dr. Campbell.
Here, thank you. Now we'll have a motion for payment of voucher for recording secretary, please.
So moved, Sullivan. Second, Riker.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Brezzi, Mr. Heller,
Yes.
Mr. Riker,
Yes.
Ms. Rose, Mr. Tremor,
Yes.
Mr. Weingart, Mr. Wall, Mr. Sullivan,
Yes.
Dr. Campbell.
Yes. There's a change in the agenda schedule. Block 2603, Lot 27, Block 490 LLC is carried from tonight to January 13th for scheduling purposes only. We'll need a motion, please.
Motion to move the application, Sullivan. Second, Heller.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Brezzi, Mr. Heller,
Yes.
Mr. Riker,
Yes.
Ms. Rose,
Yes.
Mr. Tremor,
Yes.
Mr. Weingart,
Yes.
Mr. Wall, Mr. Sullivan,
Yes.
Dr. Campbell.
Yes, just a brief update on the master plan. The committee met for 4 hours again yesterday and did an edit of the second half. So we're well on schedule, and we'll be very happy for the community to see the work we've done for the last 9 months. On to engineering or planning matters, gentlemen. Thank you. I don't believe there are any resolutions tonight. Any board matters for discussion?
None at this time.
All right, then we'll move on to applications. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, Madam Chair, members of the board. Dante Alfieri on behalf of the applicant. We are here with regards to MWNJ 13 LLC. The property address is Toms River Road. It's block 17101, lots 9.07 and 9.09. We are here seeking the board's approval for a major subdivision, creating 6 new residential lots and 1 open space lot. If the board remembers, this was a previously approved subdivision many, many years ago that was never perfected. We are here seeking the board's approval tonight of a very similar application. I have 2 individuals who are going to provide testimony. I have our engineer and our planner. So,
Well, let's listen to our engineer and our planner first, okay?
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dante is correct in that subdivision to establish 6 lots and 1 open space lot of just under 61 acres. One of the first questions I would have would be who's going to own that open space lot? The project does need a variety of variance relief, width and frontage. It's proposed to have all the setbacks meet the requirements of the zone. So we should have some testimony from the applicant regarding these variances. There's also individual stormwater management basins provided on all the lots. So the question comes up of who maintains those basins and what guarantees are going to be put in place to make sure those drainage facilities aren't altered by some future resident. We should have some discussion regarding the improvements to Getz Lane, and specifically the, I'll say the interface between existing Getz Lane beyond the site and how the new Getz Lane is going to tie into that existing roadway. Again, in support of the variances, from testimony regarding the support of the variances, that's all at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Klee covered just about all of it. Project is in the FA6 Forest Zone District. There are a number of variances that are required that will need some supporting testimony for the board to approve. And as there is reference to the previous approval, we'd like to hear some specifics about Getz Lane. How much, what, how long, what's going on, how it impacts the adjacent property owners. We have a report dated October 15, 2024. The applicant's professionals did reach out to us. I had an opportunity to go over them, so I suspect we'll get some affirmative testimony right away. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Alfieri.
Thank you. So without further ado, I'll have our first individual come up and provide testimony.
Son? Yes.
Good, how you doing?
Mr. Portnoy, can you please state your name and spell your name for the record?
Well,
Please,
first we're gonna
let me
swear
swear
him
you
in.
in first. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please state your name and spell your last.
Joseph Portnoy, Portnoy, licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I have appeared before this board in the past on a couple occasions.
Is your license current?
My license is current.
Welcome.
Thank you.
The board accepts your
Good evening.
credentials?
We do.
Mr. Portnoy, you heard some of the comments from the board professionals. but
Having a
before-
little trouble hearing you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
You've heard some of the comments from the board professionals. Before we delve into those, could you please just introduce the application itself and describe?
One second. So are you going to be testifying as an engineer and a planner, or just an engineer?
I have a separate planner to testify.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so just an engineer then?
Just an engineer.
Just an engineer.
Okay, good evening. Do we have any of the exhibits that were shared? I believe there was an existing aerial exhibit. Thank you. Okay, so this exhibit shows the existing lot, as known as it's block 17101, lots 9.07 and 9.09. Lot 9.07 is approximately 56.57 acres, fronting on South Sum Tavern Road, and 9.09, that's 60, the larger lot is 9.07, and 9.09 is approximately 11.15 acres, fronting on Toms River Road and the unimproved Goats Lane, marginally improved Goats Lane, approximately 67.7 acres combined. So the lot's vacant, some wooded areas, some cleared areas. There is a significant amount of wetlands on it, and there's a JCP&L right-of-way cutting through the southern part running from South Sum Tavern to Toms River Road. Goats Lane, we mentioned, is a marginally improved. There's like a gravel driveway there, which provides access to some of these. There are some lots inside, so there's a public right-of-way that ends along the frontage of 9.09, and then there's a right-of-way easement that continues farther into the site, which overlaps part of this subject property. See, there's a little finger outline in the red there of the property that's within the right-of-way, that right-of-way easement, but encompasses some other area that provides access to some of those other lots, which provides access to lots 10 through 14. So this, as noted, this is in the FA6 forest zone, it's in the Pinelands area. So the site received prior subdivision approval. Just a minor correction, the subdivision was actually perfected, the map was filed, and then to create 6 single-family lots on what is currently lot 9.09. At that time, it was in the PV zone. The lot 9.07 was remainder was in the FA3 zone at the time. Now everything is in the FA6 zone. That subdivision did include variances for minimum lot depth of the corner lot of the subdivision, at the corner of Goats and Toms River Road. So the plat was filed, but then in 2006, and the lots 9.01 and through 9.06 were reconsolidated in 2020 to create the current lot 9.09. So this was subdivided, was reconsolidated by a previous owner. So this is an application to re-subdivide, generally along the original subdivision, but the zone has changed to FA6 in the meantime. So there have been some modifications to better conform with the current zoning. Are you able to pull up the subdivision aerial exhibit? There was a subdivision aerial, like overlay of this. Okay, this is that if you're able to zoom in on the subdivision portion at the Toms River Road portion. Thank you. So the application is to subdivide these 2 lots and to create 6 single-family residential lots, 3 fronting Toms River Road, 3 fronting on Goats Lane, and then a remainder lot with remaining acreage. The lots, there's a mandatory, in the FA6 zone, there's a mandatory clustering requirement to create 1 acre lots, and then another 5 acres of conservation for each lot. So the proposed lots range from 1.0 to 1.28 acres, and we'll be providing the rest of the conservation area. So there's a minimum required, for the 6 developable acres, there's a minimum requirement of 30 acres of conservation area, which will be deed restricted. Much of the remaining area was already in the conservation easement associated with the original approval, but we will review and provide a plan of the and conservation easement associated with this for anything to meet all the requirements. As noted, there are variances for minimum lot width and minimum frontage. The original subdivision, at the time original subdivision, this was in the PV zone.
Can you just show us with your pointer where the access is from the street going to the lots is, just so everybody can see how?
Yeah, so we could pull up the site plan, the improvement plan that will show in more detail. From the site plan set, I believe it should be sheet 4. Yes, thank you. So there are 3 lots over here fronting onto Toms River Road, and the 3 lots fronting onto Goats Lane. There are variances required for minimum lot width, where the original subdivision was based on the PV zone, which allowed 125-foot lot width, and the current FA6 zone requires 150 feet. So, to recreate that subdivision requires a variance for lot width and frontage. There was no frontage requirement at the time of the original subdivision. There also, there is a setback, there is a lot depth variance for the corner lot, which was similar to what was on the original subdivision as well. Note that it is consistent, the lot width is consistent with nearby single-family lots within the FA6 zone. There's on the east side of Toms River Road, there are several single-family lots with 100-foot width. To the north along Tuxedo Court, there's also there's a number of lots that with 125-foot width and frontage. And when the planner will provide testimony regarding the variance is required. We will comply with, as noted, we'll comply with the setback requirements, we'll comply with the maximum clearing limit of 20,000 square feet per developed lot. The proposed improvements in Toms River include Toms River Road has already been, has curb installed, I believe, as part of the original subdivision or some county improvements. We are proposing sidewalk along Toms River Road, street trees. We're adjusting when the original curb was put in, there were depressed curbs put in for the driveways based on the original subdivision. Some of those are shifting a little bit. Goats Lane is proposed to be improved it is a public right-of-way. It's proposed to be improved as a public right-of-way with a 24-foot wide pavement width, which is consistent with the original design that was approved as part of the original subdivision. Curbing on both sides, sidewalk along the north side. There was a comment that the sidewalk ended at the last driveway, but we will extend that to the end of the public right-of-way along the lot. Lighting, street lighting and street trees. As noted, Goats Lane does continue with that right-of-way easement to access additional lots. So the grading, the pavement and grading, designed to tie into the existing grades there so it could continue to be utilized to access those lots. There are no improvements. There is a frontage along South Tavern Road. The remainder lot, there are no improvements proposed along that frontage. So the plans show 6 single-family houses. They're called on the plans 5 bedrooms, approximate 1,800 square foot footprints. Side with the driveways accommodating like a side-loaded garage. Complying with the setbacks, coverage requirements. The lots, knowing that the lots will be sold, and the homeowner, the purchasers will design their own houses and will need to submit plot plans to the town for approval. There is no water sewer available, so it's it'll be serviced by private well and septic. We did provide a septic plan to confirm feasibility, spacing to be able to fit all the septics. The drainage, it was to, are you able to go to the grading sheet? I believe the next sheet on the set. Thank you. Each lot is proposed to have an individual infiltration basin. This is necessary to comply with the small-scale green infrastructure requirements and the pinelands requirements, nitrogen removal. So there is an individual basin on each lot, which will receive the runoff from the lawn area. Each driveway is proposed to be porous pavement, and those will be privately owned by each homeowner. There will be file maintenance plan for that, but they will be privately owned. There is no homeowners association. For Goats Lane is proposed to be treated right now. There's the existing storm sewer on Toms River Road, the county storm sewer, discharges into a sort of subsurface basin within Goats Lane, and there's an inlet at the end of Goats Lane where the runoff bubbles out. So it gets discharged from Toms River Road, gets collected by storm sewer, goes into a perforated pipe along the length of Goats Lane, and then anything that overflowed bubbles out of the inlet and continues into, for the most part, into the remainder of the site. Goats Lane is proposed for the original stormwater management designed for Goats Lane. The original subdivision is obviously not per the green infrastructure, current rainfall requirements, so that needed to be redesigned. So it's proposed to construct a porous pavement section of the roadway, the roadway's porous pavement to treat and manage that runoff associated with the road. Just some miscellaneous items from the planner, from some review letters. Regarding the question regarding grading, will comply with the grading requirements, as it is not expected to. No import is expected. There may be, if there is material, there may be some. If there is material required to export, we expect to comply with the 1,000 cubic yard maximum for soil export. Based on the current grade, there is a slight export. The planner's review referenced the open space requirement of section 244-199A1. The ordinance does not provide specific standards in FA6 zone, but we're noting that more than the 10% open space is provided in the required conservation area. The planner's review also referenced recreational space requirements. Based on the ordinance section 244-200A, we're proposing 6 single-family houses, which results in 18 persons as defined by the ordinance. So the ordinance requirements are for the most part, larger scale, talking about thousands of persons. So they're, believe it's beyond the scale of this development. So if a waiver is required, we would be requesting that. We received a review from a township tree specialist. We'll review to address. We'll coordinate to address any comments there, along with any comments from the engineer, the township engineer, the board engineer, and planner. And also note regarding with Pinelands, the original project received a certificate of filing from the Pinelands. We have met with the Pinelands about this project. They've confirmed they are considering the original approval in place. They're not going to be issuing a new certificate of filing because they said this is substantially conforming with the original approval. So they're relying on the original certificate of filing for this application.
One of the questions the board professionals had was who will be retaining the open space lot? Who will be
We're recording, so you
apologize.
have to speak into it.
who will be retaining the open space lot?
The applicant would be retaining the open space lot. Right now, most of it's restricted use anyway. There are some conservations, wetlands, wetlands and buffers on that. But they, for the most part, would be restricted either by existing restrictions or by any additional proposed conservation easements as a result of this. But would be intended to be owned by owned by the applicant.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Riker?
Okay, Mr. Portnoy, you go into these conversations that you've had with the DEP and whatnot. Are they quantified in writing anywhere?
Yes, it was submitted to the conversation with Pinelands. We've submitted to the Pinelands.
So they're documented?
Yes, there's an email from Pinelands to address, noting that they're relying on the original certificate of filing.
For the record, I'd appreciate it if you'd always say it's been documented in a letter, with a date, whatever, because when we hear conversations, I have lots of conversations, but none of them are considered fact unless there's proof. So just for clarity of record, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, I apologize. The documentation was submitted as part of the application because there's a requirement for certificate of filing that was submitted.
Okay.
Thank you.
And do you have the date of the original approval?
The original subdivision approval?
Yeah, for the Pinelands Commission.
The Pinelands approval? I believe I have a. apologize, I thought I had that printed out, but I did not see it. Let me see, it might be referenced in the review letters because that was included in the correspondence submitted. Let me see if it's noted in the review letters.
Mr. Riker, if I might, our report indicates that the original certificate of filing was dated September 19, 2000. So I believe that information was submitted as part of the application. I'm not testifying for the applicant, it's just what I wrote in my report, so I'm going to stand by it.
24 years ago?
Yes, we cannot require, we asked the Pinelands, we resubmit, we can't force them to issue a certificate of filing, we requested, they said that we have the email that they submitted, that they sent us in response to our request for it, there was submitted to the town.
I agree, Madam Chair. That's one of the first things that I question about a certificate of filing, because it can't be deemed complete without it. The applicant did provide a email from between the applicant and the Pinelands. As Mr. Peters indicated, it was originally had a certificate of filing in September of 2000, and we have an email from the Pinelands Commission, November 15, 2023, that says basically we can use the old certificate of filing for this application.
That's all I wanted
That's
to know.
good,
Thank you
that's
so much.
good. Thank you, because 24 years is a long time.
Yeah, it's a little unusual.
Understood.
I would
I think
just
they're
add,
pretty backed up there, so they're looking to avoid any work they can.
Let's just put it this way, I didn't have any gray hairs back then.
but even with that certificate of filing that the Pinelands Commission said is okay to use now, they're still going to have to go back to the Pinelands and get a no call-up letter.
All right, any other questions from the board at this time? For this gentleman?
Madam-
Any
Yes.
comments from our professionals at this time?
Yeah. Just a couple. The applicant is going to own the 61-acre open space lot.
Correct.
And there's individual drainage basins provided on all the properties to be developed. What kind of guarantee can we establish that when the future homeowner comes in, he doesn't like this hole in the ground? He fills it in. How do we make sure that that doesn't happen?
So I believe the current stormwater rules require, any green infrastructure to be deed restricted. So we file, a deed restriction on those, could file meets and bounds, around that proposed, green infrastructure as required by.
So those restrictions could be put on a final plat where anybody who's going to buy this lot will know what they can and can't do.
Correct.
Right, it'll run with the land. Yeah. So it'll run with the land.
Correct.
Correct.
If there's ever a modification to that, that would need to be filed if someone wants to
It'll be in the
redesign the
chain of
basin.
titles, so if anybody has
Correct.
title search, will be able to see it.
Correct.
And the only other comments relate to Getz Lane, where I think you had indicated that the sidewalk is going to be extended all the way to the end of the property.
That's correct.
And can we get some additional detailing of how that new Getz Lane is going to blend into or match into the existing Getz Lane? I know it's probably a dirt road, but can we have some more detail as far as that?
Yes, we'll provide more information on it, yeah.
You had indicated that Toms River Road has drainage in place now, and there's some type of recharge pipe in Getz?
Yes, there's a county system in Toms River Road. It comes to the intersection of Getz Lane, and then there's a recharge. We can forward the county plans. That was, the county didn't require any additional improvements on Toms River Road. They did ask to add more detail of their, they shared their plans with us to add to our plans, because a lot of it is paved over, so it's not visible.
Can we get the specifics of that existing system on the plans?
Yes.
You telling me that now is the first time I've heard that there was anything in existing drainage in Getz.
Yeah, there was, a lot of it's been paved over. If you look at the end, the terminus of the end of the right-of-way, there is an existing catch basin there, which is overflow from it. It was, when we did the survey, a lot of things were not matching up. The county has shared their plans with us. So there is a main line down Toms River Road. The manholes are all paved over, so it's not visible. And then there is a 24 or 30-inch recharge pipe, the perforated pipe going down Getz Lane with that inlet at the end which would overflow.
Okay. Just if we can get that information put on the plan, and it also goes back to how is the new Getz Lane going to interface or connect to, if there's a drainage system back there or whatever, I think it should be on the plans.
Okay, yes, we will include more information regarding that.
And the only other question relates to the surfacing of Getz. There's permeable pavement proposed.
Yes.
How does that stack up maintenance-wise to your typical 6-1 pavement section?
So it's becoming more common now with, with the green infrastructure rules, where those are going in a lot more. It's really the same maintenance, sweeping, or there's no special maintenance, just has to be restricted. It cannot be, paved over, in the future, or sealed or some way. It can be salted, as a regular pavement, but I'm not aware if the town has other porous pavement right away or not. The original subdivision plan had called for a swale along Getz Lane. However, that was designed based on the earlier stormwater rules, with the green infrastructure and with the current rainfall runoff amounts. Again, that was 20 years ago. The original design is not feasible.
I would agree with the green infrastructure. We're starting to see more and more of this pervious pavement. And for a private site, that's fine. It's somebody else's responsibility to maintain. This is going to be the town's responsibility to maintain. And I'm just wondering, is the town really equipped to maintain it? I'm sure they have street sweepers. But would the applicant be willing to extend the maintenance period? Once the road's built, it's bonded. Once it's built, they have to provide a maintenance bond. I think typically it's 2 years is the maintenance bond. 5 years? Thank you. If we could maybe extend it, if it is 5, extend it to maybe 7?
No objection.
Thank you. That's all.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Portnoy, you had indicated the maximum clearing for each lot is limited to 20,000 square feet. Is that something that's going to be put in deeds for each of the individual lots as part of the approval?
We'll submit as part of resolution, should we approval be granted, we'll submit a, exhibit showing the clearing limit on each lot. And that can be,
I'm not sure you answered my question respectfully. I want to know if your attorney and our attorney is going to have something that says lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each of them can only have a 20,000 square foot limit of disturbance, and it runs with the land.
Yes, I will work with Mr. Shea's office to make sure we have that in place.
Thank you. From an engineering perspective, there appear to be about a dozen variances for dimensional relief. Would it be possible to remove those variances by building fewer lots?
it would be possible to remove those from those.
Thank you. I expect you guys are going to make a great argument as to why they're reasonable variances. I just needed to have that on the record. As it relates to the use of permeable pavement, have you reviewed that either with the township engineer or the public works director for their input?
We have not reviewed, we have not discussed it specifically. We have submitted the plans, we did not receive any specific feedback on that use.
I think it might be a reasonable condition as part of resolution of compliance to at least get some recognition by the township engineer and or the public works director, the ones who are going to have to be responsible for taking care of it forever and ever. And understanding this is the beginning of green infrastructure, I can tell you, as Mr. Klee said, we see it on plenty of private sites. When the town has to take care of it, we're not sure sitting here as a planning board if our public works department is ready to take care of it, or more importantly, reconcile its useful life for bonding purposes. So whether it's the useful life of a street with very little vehicular traffic could be 20, 25, 30 years, is porous pavement going to last that long when you have to turn garbage trucks or vehicles around at the end of it?
Wow.
And at that point in time, will Public Works be able to replace porous pavement with porous pavement? Or is someone just going to go and pave it over?
Do they know?
So I think at least just some, if the applicant reaches out to the people who are responsible for it and provide a response, I mean, if the Public Works Director stands on a soapbox and says, not a chance, well, we've got something. But I don't disagree with Mr. Portnoy's representation that it's part of green infrastructure and it is where we're heading. I just, respectfully, the Township Engineer and the Public Works Director don't come to our meetings.
Are there specifications that you could provide on the lifetime of a surface like this?
There are specifications. I do not know the lifetime. I would have to look into that. I know now it has been, in recent years, it's been more standardized. The DOT has specs on it, and they're used on projects. So we can do research and provide that.
It would be useful if you could provide those to our engineer and planner.
We will do that. Thank you.
That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Anything from the board for this gentleman?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So our second individual to provide testimony will be our planner, John Takina.
All right. How you doing?
I'm great, how are you?
I haven't seen you in a while. Yeah. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Please state name and spell your last for the record.
Sure. My name's John Tykina, T is the top.
He doesn't need the microphone.
You don't read it either.
I don't like to feel like I'm yelling at you. T is in Thomas, A-I, K is in Kelly, I-N-A. I'm a licensed planner in the state of New Jersey, have been since 1992 when I completed my studies at Rutgers University. For the last 32 years, I've been a planner in private practice, mostly representing applicants before boards just like this. I haven't been here in more than 20 years before your planning board. I have been to your zoning board several times in the last year, and more than 175 boards overall.
Oh, we accept your credentials and welcome.
Thank you so much. So I am here, you don't want to ask me anything, right?
Go ahead.
Didn't think so. So I'm here to talk about the application from a planning standpoint. I do like to make a point of not repeating anything that Mr. Portnoy said. But just the basics, we are on the FA6 forest zone. It is a cluster zone by ordinance, so we have 1 acre lots minimum for our development lots, and then we are required to have 5 acres of conservation land for each developed lot. So we are able to provide that, and we will be exceeding that to a certain extent. In terms of our bulk relief, Mr. Peters is correct that we do require lot width and lot frontage variances, which are kind of the same thing, on several of our lots along Toms River Road as well as along Getz Lane, as indicated in his planning review. You know, we do need bulk variance relief here. So in this instance, I would argue that these are what are called C2 variances, or the flexible C, the planning variance, where the benefits of granting that variance outweigh any possible detriments. In terms of the standard, the board's standards are somewhat specific. First and foremost, that relates to a specific property within the township. Secondly, that we show how those benefits outweigh the detriments. And that standard is set forth in a case called Pullen v. South Plainfield, where you look at the overall benefits versus the overall detriment. So it's not like just the individual benefit and detriment of the individual variances for lot width or lot frontage, but you look at the overall positives and the overall negatives of the project and you balance them out. The second case to look at there is called Kaufman v. Planning Board of Warren Township. Again, this was the seminal case that talked about C1 and C2 variances and really explained what the standard is there. So they're kind of the two cases that provide us the roadmap. And boards don't always like hearing me talk that I refer to legal cases. but I only refer to them in the standpoint of, they provide the roadmap that's been laid out by the prior boards and by the courts to say, these are the things we'd like you to find in granting this relief. So that's why we referred to that. And then, not finally, but additionally, you'll need to show that we advance some purposes of zoning. And then finally, as with all your variances, as you know, we need to satisfy the negative criteria. Do we have any substantial detriment to public good or to our neighbors in general? And are we having a substantial impairment on your zone plan or your master plan? So first and foremost, this does specifically relate to this 67 acre property, excuse me, on Toms River Road, block 17101, lots 907 and 909, and no other property. This relief solely relates to this property. It doesn't carry any precedent throughout the township. It is only related to the specific conditions that we'll discuss that affect this property and its surroundings. In terms of our advancing our purposes of zoning, I'd submit to you that there are three. Purpose E, and I apologize, I do read them. Purpose E to promote the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations that will contribute to the well-being of persons, neighborhoods, communities, and regions, and the preservation of the environment. Purpose G, provide for sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of agricultural, residential, recreational, commercial, and open space uses, both public and private, according to their respective environmental requirements in order to meet the needs of all New Jersey citizens. And I'm going to stick with those two. I don't like to lay out here. So specifically, E relates to appropriate population densities. So again, your FA6 really talks about one dwelling unit per 6 acres in a cluster arrangement. We have a developed lot of 1 and a conservation lot of 5. Here we have 6 developed lots, so we'll have more than 30 acres that is placed in conservation land. The applicant is retaining the entire 61-acre parcel, and more than, so accordingly, more than 30 acres will be deed restricted as open space or conservation land within that area, and it will be held private. So again, we heard the discussion about the township being worried about taking care of the road. Well, you're not going to have to be worried about taking care of the open space because the private owner is going to retain that conservation land in their own. And then in terms of sufficient space and appropriate locations, we think that the 1 acre lots and the 1+ acre lots, so we have lots that are more than 125 feet wide, but they're also substantially deeper than the 250 feet that is required, with the exception of the corner lot. So again, we're providing some additional land within the properties to again provide for sufficient space for that development. We've already testified that we will have the on-site individual stormwater management. We will have the required 20,000 square foot limit on clearing and whatever deed restrictions, et cetera. Mr. Peters referenced it again. That's a bulk standard, so I think that for the applicant to agree to place that in the deed as a restriction is actually going above and beyond the requirements of the ordinance and really the purpose of the ordinance. So you're going to have lots that are much, 20% larger than the 1 acre, but they're still going to have that same 20,000 square foot restriction on it. So again, providing for additional benefit. And we are satisfying all the requisite environmental requirements, both by providing for the conservation land and by providing for the clearing limit and providing for the individual on-site stormwater management, which again is a very detailed process, is a burden on the homeowner that they're going to have to take on. It is going to be deed restricted. And likewise, we're also going to have stormwater management within Getz Lane, and that's both from the county standpoint that we're going to preserve and from the township standpoint in terms of how that street is built. I understand that this is different for public works people, et cetera, but it is the mandate of the state how these things have to be handled. And again, much like I'm sure in the 1980s and 1990s, public works people didn't like having to cut the grass from detention basins. evolution of how environmental quality is treated and environmental protection is treated here within the state of New Jersey. In terms of the overall benefits, again, we're providing for 6 lots. We're providing for in excess of the 30 acres of conservation land. Again, we'll have 60 acres overall, and more than 30 acres will be preserved as deed restricted conservation land. So again, providing for additional benefit and additional open space above and beyond the bare minimum that would be expected by providing for 6 lots. And we believe that providing for 6 lots in this fashion, using the 2 existing streets, is kind of more in keeping with what's going on within that area of Toms River Road. We do have 7 lots, immediately across the street from us on Toms River Road that are also 125 feet. So again, keeping with the Kaufman decision, one of the findings of the Kaufman decision is that the grant of bulk variance is warranted when it preserves community and neighborhood character. So we have 125 feet lots across the street on Toms River Road. We're going to have 125 feet on this side. We already heard additional conversation, the additional 125-foot lots that are just north of us on the cul-de-sac, a little less relevant. I think the ones that are most appropriate are the ones that are immediately across the street on Toms River Road. So again, I think that the overall benefit of the open space, of the environmental protections, and of the consistency with the neighborhood across the street, I think being across the street from lots that look like you is something that makes neighborhoods kind of come together and makes everybody feel better. Hey, I'm 125, he's up at 25, kind of we're all the same. Nobody wants to be the smallest house on the lot. Nobody wants to be the smallest house on the block. Nobody wants to be the biggest house on the block. We're all kind of the same. It's a nice cohesive neighborhood, and is allowed to continue there. In terms of our negative criteria, again, I think we're having no detriment at all to our neighbors, et cetera. Our lots are certainly big enough to provide for appropriate environmental management in terms of stormwater and those things. We have all of our public improvements that are being proposed, curbs, sidewalks, lighting, et cetera. I could argue that given the area on Toms River Road, it would almost be a little more appropriate if we weren't so improved. But again, I think that providing for what is set forth in the ordinance, is the type of investment that is appropriate. If the township wants to take that stance that nobody wants what's in the ordinance, then that's absolutely appropriate. And the Toms River Road is going to continue to be improved in that way as future developments continue along that way, whether it's curbing, it's lighting, or it's sidewalks. Again, once you kind of set your standard, again, everybody's going to kind of follow along there. And I think every developer and every applicant just wants to know, well, if I did it in 2024, somebody had to do it in 26, 28, and 30, and I would expect that the township is going to carry that out.
Let me interrupt for just a second.
Certainly.
One of the issues that we're having is this is recorded and it is on Zoom. And if you don't use the microphone, people at home cannot hear what you're saying. We can hear you very well here, but the microphones are tied into the system.
Okay, I'm sorry you kind of told me not to, but I'm perfectly happy to use the
Thank you.
microphone.
It's just, we want the people at home to be comfortable.
Absolutely, Ms. Campbell.
Thank
I have no objection using a microphone ever. I don't need to repeat myself though, right?
No.
Okay,
No, sir.
just making sure.
No.
And then I'm going to conclude just with our negative criteria in terms of our impact on our master plan and our ordinance. In terms of your master plan, a key goal is working towards a balanced community. I think that we're balancing all these goals, whether they are quality of life, environmental constraints, and providing opportunities for development and redevelopment. In terms of specific objectives, one of them is we envision Jackson Township will continue to evolve into a well-balanced community. We foresee a community that provides a diversity of residential opportunities for all types of households, and a community that protects and preserves its natural environment through proper regulation and stewardship. So I think we have those two balances specifically being represented here. And then finally, to achieve a pattern and mix of land uses that achieves various community planning objectives, including provisions of quality neighborhoods, protection of natural resources, and the creation of a desirable and livable community. So again, I think these are criteria that we are, objectives of your master plan that we are specifically advancing, and we are certainly in no way impairing them when you have development that is at the specified density, providing for substantial open space preservation. I think that is exactly what Jackson Township is looking for in terms of its development pattern. And again, I think that having a neighborhood on one side of Toms River Road that is reflective of the neighborhood on the other side of Toms River Road is absolutely an appropriate neighborhood balance for the board to strike. We believe that, again, we've stated all of our bulk requirements, et cetera, will be complied with, so we're going to have no impairment on your ordinance there. And again, we are specifically advancing the purpose of the FA6 zone to provide transitional development between protected forest areas and regional growth. So we're going to have development along Toms River Road and along Guest Lane, where we have development now, and we're going to have preservation behind it as it transitions into the forest that exists to that side of Toms River Road. So for these purposes, I believe the board has the ability to grant the relief that is requested. I am available for your questions. I do want to answer Mr. Peters' question about the number of lots, et cetera. Again, we felt it was most appropriate to draw the lots along the existing streets and have the least amount of impact on the area. Do I believe that there is a scenario where we could cut a street through the middle and have a cul-de-sac kind of beyond the end of our established lot and have, two additional lots there instead of the short lots that we have along Toms River Road? Yes, I believe there is a street alternative that could have been drawn and could have been presented. It would be much more disruptive to the neighborhood, and it would provide for less conservation land than what is proposed here. So I think that this represents a better planning alternative than that potential development alternative. Now, we didn't present it, I recognize that, but given the width even of our, what I'll call our short stem that continues out into the property, it's more than 300 feet wide. So again, we need 250 for the lot and 50 for the street. So we would have been able to run a street up one side and kind of have lots dropping off along the other side. So again, I think that this represents a better and less intrusive and disruptive development alternative than a street alternative would. And I think it's a better alternative for the township. So again, for those reasons, I think you have the ability to make the requisite findings, and I am available for your questions, but I wanted to make sure that I addressed Mr. Peters' specific question that he did ask.
Mr. Peters, any questions, comments for this gentleman? That's true. No, I believe that yeah. That the criteria for the C2 variance would be requested to the extent that they're proposing 6 lots on the new 65 acres. All right. Mr. Klee, anything from you? Any questions from this board? I apologize, but I do have several questions for the engineer again.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I won't
Tykes.
leave.
Don't leave.
Thank you, Mr.
The
Tykes.
public still gets to ask you questions.
I can't wait.
Yes.
I don't recall hearing, maybe I just missed it, about the water and sewer situations. There's city water?
No.
City sewer? How are we
So,
doing this? Did we hear testimony about that?
Yes.
But a very brief. I'd like a little more in-depth.
so there is no public water and sewer available, so it's proposed to service these with individual wells and septic systems.
What type of septic systems? More specific, I think we'd like to hear.
I know often in the Pinelands, sometimes you're required to have a advanced treatment. It's a factor based on what they call dilution model, depends on the available the total area compared to the flows. In this situation, the Pinelands, is not requiring an advanced treatment. They're okay with the standard septic system.
You have that in writing somewhere?
I do have I believe I have that in correspondence. If not, we'll provide that to the board.
Please make sure to provide that. Thank you. What else did I want to ask? There was something. No, I guess that was it. It was the sewer and septic. So anything from this board, and if not, then we will go to the public. Anyone wishing to ask any questions of these two experts, you're more than welcome to come forward. Look, you may come forward, ma'am. Just a second.
Yep.
We have a little process here.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so these questions is going to be cross-examination questions for the experts, right? This is you specifically asking the engineer or the
Okay.
planner any questions you want, but I have to swear you in. So,
Okay.
please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, and please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Donna Keidel, Keidel, and I live at 534 Getz Lane.
All right, have at it.
Now,
So
please make sure to use the microphone because we are recording.
I'm really
Thank you.
short, and
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you
Pull
can
it
pull
down,
down.
it's at your level, and just
so
get close.
I bought my property on Getz Lane in 1987. When I did that, I had to widen the road to 20 feet out of our own pocket. We had to go in front of the Pinelands, in front of this board as well. None of you were probably here. And we had to widen the road to 20 feet at our own cost to build our homes. We bought 10 acres and divided it into 2 lots. The township has never maintained the road to the width that we had to make it, even though we had to improve it. Right now, the road has gotten narrower and narrower. You could see that probably who's ever been there. The road is also a hill. I don't know if anybody mentioned that. The road does come downhill from 571, and it's been rarely maintained properly. They did put that very small drainage at the end, I think in front of house number 505. When it rains, when it snows, when we have bad weather, the water completely bypasses that very small drainage that they put in, and it pools at the end of the road, pretty much in front of my driveway. We've been lucky not to have very bad weather, but when it does get rainy and icy, it's an ice skating rink down there. My mailbox has been hit by the garbage men, the mailman, the little buses that come down the road a number of times, because as you get down to the end, like I said, it becomes an ice skating rink, and you can't even stop. Plus, the road is in very bad condition. It has so many potholes. We call all the time to Public Works to have it graded and maintained, and they really honestly don't do a good job. In 1987, we said we were on the books to have the road paved. I don't know how long it takes to get a road paved, but we've been waiting since 1987.
Ma'am, did you say that you widened the road to 20 feet?
Yeah, so when we first bought our property, they told us that we had to widen the road to 20 feet to the end of our property for emergency vehicles.
I believe this applicant is widening the road to 24 feet. Did I?
That's just into the end.
To the end of, right, to
And
the
then it's
end
going
of
to go
their
back to
property.
the tiny little road that it is.
Right.
The day that I needed the township to come for my house fire, the trucks couldn't make it to my property and my house burned to the ground. Because they never maintained the road to the 20 feet that they were supposed to.
So is it a dirt road?
It is a dirt road. They've put some packing gravel over time. They've done different
So
things.
what that may mean, I'm not familiar with the road itself, so what that... Hang on, but just to answer your question, what that may mean is that it's a paper road.
It
and-
is.
Yeah, right, so what happens in a situation like that is that if it's never been, asphalted or paved...
It hasn't, but they've
whatever-
come from time to time. They put millings down
Right, but
once or twice.
what I'm saying to you is that if it hasn't been formally dedicated as an actual asphalted road that's
Right.
built to engineering township standards, then I don't believe that the township has the ability of going out and maintaining.
No, it is. It's written in. If you bring it up, the easement is maintained by the township.
Well, so this is something you may want to reach out to the township council, township engineer, or something like that, and.
Well, but my point is, when they come down now, whatever this pavement is, or whatever this new type of road that they're gonna put in, what happens when it now reverts back to dirt? Because if you look at the road now, the township did come and pave part of the road years ago, because where it went up to 571, the road would deteriorate and it would leave like a gully. So the township did come in and pave part of Getz
Right.
Lane at one point.
So what's going to happen is that they're going to have to build it to town standards.
Right, so my point is what's happening where your pavement ends and the dirt road starts again.
Right.
How is that gonna
The-
get
The township,
incorporated?
at that point, what's going to happen, a township engineer is going to have to make an assessment that it doesn't create a safety hazard or anything like that to, to the excess roadway
Right.
after. So he has to do an actual assessment that, based upon his analysis, it's not going to create detrimental situations down the road. Don't quote me on the exact process of that, I just know that they do that as part of their checklist process at the end.
Because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more houses past where it's gonna
Right, but
end.
this is kind of way beyond the scope
Yeah,
of
it's
With
this
a lot of
board.
traffic or.
I drove down there today.
It's a mess.
Uh, Well, it is what it is, and
Right.
what it is a paper street.
Right.
It's not a paved
It's
road.
not.
So, we can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear either.
No, but the township has come in and done things that.
Yes, but
That
this
federal road.
applicant will have obligations to make certain that there's a smooth
Yes.
transition from their portion of the road to your portion of the road. Beyond that, you really need, you and your neighbors might want to get together and approach the township.
We've tried, but.
Sorry,
I have one
not
more
this board.
question. Are they bringing natural gas are you bringing natural gas in down?
It would be natural gas down to these road, down Goats Lane to finish services, so that
And when do we know how all this is going to come together and how their pavement's going to meet what's there now? How do we know that? Are there more meetings? Do we get more notification?
Madam Chair, I think I can answer.
Oh, thank you,
that
Mr.
one.
Klee.
That was one of the comments that I had a request from the applicant, to get some more detail of how this new roadway is going to blend into the existing dirt roadway, and the applicant agreed that he would do that. And I can make sure that, it's properly engineered.
So we just follow up on that?
Yes.
That was it. Thank you.
Madam, let me say one thing. I may have been on this board in 1987. And you're one of the many roads in this town. And when people bought houses many years ago, if you mentioned paving in front of them, they tar and feather you. They wanted their dirt road. And Getz Lane is one of them. It's not a paper road, it's a dirt road. And they maintain it with their graders and every so often put some stuff down. And over the years, they've been catching up, but they've never caught up on all of them. And we have a lot of roads like that in this town, and I think slowly you're going to see them all disappearing. But back in the day, in the 80s and the early 90s, if somebody bought a house on a dirt road, they didn't care if they got plastered with dust every day, nothing. Don't put blacktop on my road. So
We wanted it.
now that's the opposite, so yes.
Right.
But it's not only your road, there's a lot of roads in town that haven't been addressed. They put their graders out there, that's the best they can do.
It is.
And with this would be an improvement to the road.
It's just more the water that comes down
Correct.
the road.
Well,
that
and it
needs
will
to get
be a
addressed.
beginning, and it's a beginning that you maybe can work off of, that you can use this as a opportunity to revisit that section of road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to come forward and ask any questions?
Seeing no one else
Up,
come,
somebody's coming. Nice try, though. Good evening.
How you doing? All right,
My
please.
name is,
Oh.
sorry.
There you go. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please state your name and spell your last of the record.
Liz Turin, Turrin.
All right.
And your
And your
address,
address?
please, ma'am.
I'm sorry?
Address, please.
I'm just about to say that. I'm at 526 Getz Lane, which is right next to the proposed development. So I'm the first house past the top of the map there.
Right,
We're the first property.
thank
So,
you.
So I have several questions. Don't know how much time we have, but I'll try to roll through these quickly. As far as the drainage and runoff, I know we spoke about it.
Address your questions to the applicant,
Sure.
please. Thank you.
So the runoff and drainage, I'm sure you'll have more details, I'm hoping, and that we'll see those regarding what happens, because as the previous person said, there's a very small, drain area that goes into the, and who knows how old those pipes are, and whether they're in good condition. They could be filled with, who knows, rock, dust, dirt, whatever. So that's one thing that I'm curious about. I'm going to run through the questions, and then sorry, because I want to make sure I capture them all. I also would like to know about the pavement and what your plans are to adjoin the two roads, because we're going to turn left out of our driveway into that road every day. I have a horse farm, I have a truck and trailer. It's hard to make that turn, and if I have to hit a hard pavement road as I'm coming up, that's going to cause, repeated damage to my truck. Number 3, the traffic patterns on that road. We're on kind of a blind curve, and there's a downhill, and we're going to see a lot more traffic during the development and afterwards when people move in. And I don't know what your plans are in terms of the landscaping up there to make it very visible or as visible as possible. But
Why don't we let him answer one question at a time, just so we can...
Sorry,
yeah.
that's 3. I've got a few more. And then
Well,
I'll
just
go back.
let him go down.
One question at a time
Okay.
would make it
All right,
much
no
easier.
problem.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to the drainage. So
So-
how are you going to replace that? Or are you going to, just use the retention basins? Or how are you going to address the drainage issue?
So that small inlet that you mentioned at the bottom, that's what I referred to earlier. That, my understanding, if I know what you're referring to, that's
Yeah.
sort of right in front of your house.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that was not actually intended to collect water. That was intended to discharge water from the overflow.
Okay.
So that was installed by the county at some time, and it collects the water from Tom's River Road, and there's a underground pipe, perforated pipe within Goats Lane to let the water infiltrate into the ground, and the excess is actually coming out of that. So that was not intended as much to collect as much to discharge.
Disperse.
Yes.
Disperse underground. Do you know the state of the pipe under there? Probably not.
No, we have not. But this will probably be providing, it'll be improving Goats Lane with the new pavement, and which all the new pavement will be managed, which should be improving the runoff coming off Goats Lane. It will not be changing what's coming from the county system. That's the existing county system under their jurisdiction. But it will be improving the runoff from the Goats Lane, improving that pavement and managing all the runoff with that, in addition to some of the Tom's River Road runoff that's entering into that.
And I'm assuming you're also, like right now, we're in a dry spell, but it's not always like that. So as she spoke about, we get a lot of runoff, we get ice at the end of the road, and sometimes in front of our driveway too. So, I mean, you'd need, all the studies you need to do would have to take that into account. Okay, the traffic patterns and the, reducing the risk of accident, do you have anything in your plans that
So
address
we'll work
that?
with the engineer on the traffic patterns at the intersection of Goats. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, because of the two, because, it's hard to see going around, especially if there's vegetation there, it's hard to see around the turn. It's also kind of a blind turn. We often hear people screeching around the corner because they have to slow way down, because people who don't drive in that area very often forget that there's a road there that they need to slow down for. So,
So
that's a
there-
big concern too.
Yeah, understood. So there is the county requires a site triangle easement, so that corner is an easement where it has to be kept clear from obstructions, so no fences, trees that could block that. So that's a requirement of the county to deed restrict that corner to make sure there's no obstructions there.
Right. Do you know what the dimensions are for the easement?
The county
The
requires a
triangle?
30-foot by 100-foot, triangle.
Somebody have an alarm going off? Anybody?
Everybody check their phones, please make sure they're silenced. Thank you.
And then during development, of course, you'll have trucks going in and out, heavy equipment to, build and build out the road and whatever. I'm sure you're going to take into account that that affects the traffic patterns there too. What's the means for us to egress if they're coming in and paving the road, or, because that's our only means to get out on the road.
So during
Do you have an
construction,
alternative, or?
I understand there's no alternative. This is your access to your road. So during during construction, the contractor will need to coordinate with the township engineering department and to make sure that they construct in a way that maintaining access to the residents.
The landscape buffering. So we're on the other side, we're right there. And I have a horse farm on the other side of my driveway. That's where one of our paddocks are. What do you have planned in terms of landscaping on that side, on that border?
Along that border, it's not being disturbed except right near the house. The rest of the property is remaining, the rear of all those yards. So there's just, where you see along that last house, along that house, stormwater basin, there's a septic in the back. The remainder of the property is not being disturbed.
Okay, so you don't have any particular bushes or trees planned for that side?
No.
But you are going to clear that entire lot?
The front, no, we're not clearing the front because we're limited. We have a limit, per the ordinance, we have a limited amount that we're allowed to serve, 20,000 square feet per lot. So that's really encompassing the development area, so along the front.
So it's around the...
Yeah, the remainder of the lot will not be disturbed. That's going to remain as is. There's no plan, it's not clear cutting, we're not clearing these entire lots because we're restricted in that clearing area.
Okay, just two more things.
In the microphone, please, ma'am.
Oh, sure. So two more things. So the open space lot. So if you're going to be, or your applicant is going to be the private holder of that lot, what are the restrictions on what they can do, and there might be a question for the planner, about what they can do with that lot in the future? It's great now if it's going to be open space, but is that a permanent restriction?
So they will need to be deed restrictions filed on the property to anything required by the Pinelands and the township that's restricted.
Just to, maybe I can cut straight to that question. So what happens with the open spaces, that becomes actually like a conservation area. It's within the chain of title, it's deed restricted, it's pretty much, nobody can do anything with it.
Forever and ever?
Yeah, forever, and it runs with the land.
Well,
Yes.
forever and ever until someone comes before a board, and then it's restricted. So we'll all know that it's restricted.
Right.
Okay, so in other words, if someone comes before
They
you and says
they
wanna
can't
build
just
houses,
sell
they
it
can't.
and then somebody comes in and chops everything down. They can't do that.
Well, what is the difference between them holding it versus, for example, the state holding it, or the township holding it, or,
Well,
like,
they're gonna still pay
what is the
taxes on
benefit to them?
Well, yeah.
I'm just curious.
One of the benefits is to the Pinelands, for the Pineland development credits.
Okay. All right. And then finally, wildlife impact. So we have deer in the area, turkeys and so forth, and they roam free. They go through my property, across the street, and they kind of have a pattern. And what's your intention in terms of restrictions on the lot, in terms of fencing, or,
I mean, if you can get me a good turkey for
Letting people know
Thanksgiving.
that that's, part of the
They'll
landscape.
have turkeys in their yard
Yeah.
and deer like we all
Yeah.
do.
Just like when I have one come and fight my car door, yes. It'll be just like that.
It's great for pre-existing residents, but
Yeah.
for people who move into these houses who have never lived in this area, then it becomes, complaints and, so. Okay, I think that's all I have. I'm sure other people have other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with questions, please come forward. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
All right. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Jonathan Hamrick, Hamrick.
All right. And your address?
515 Getz Lane, on the corner property right across.
Gotcha.
I have a couple of questions, not as many, I don't think. You were mentioning the cleared land. You're restricted to how much land you can clear to develop this?
Correct.
What about the land that was already cleared?
The land, no.
Yeah, like in 2021, 2022? You had it in one of your pictures, there's a big
Yeah, there's a
circle
clearing
cut
there. That
out.
was prior to, as I'm not familiar with what we started off with when, we came onto a project here, when
So-
our
So that's gonna
applicant
stay
purchased the
cleared,
project.
and then you're gonna clear out the front ends to build the houses too. So it's all gonna be clear cut anyway. That's my concern.
No, so just to, maybe we can kind of go back to like the procedural part. So what happens is that they're subdividing the land right now, and I believe that they're not taking anything down. They're going to be subdividing the property, selling it to whoever the end user is. That end user then has to make an application back before the board to determine what type of house they want in that footprint. Once that end user gets an approval, they then have to go get a 2-year-long process through resolution compliance to get a zoning permit, and then only after the zoning permit do they get the right to cut trees down within whatever footprint they got approval for. So
No,
it's.
yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm not an environmental scientist.
No,
a
I'm just,
a lab
I'm just-
manager,
sometimes
but
when I
different
explain the
kind of lab.
process, it becomes easier.
Because my concerns were, I was, looking through the township maps, just trying to figure out what's going on. I wasn't actually aware that we went to FA6. I was FA3 when we first bought the property. FA6, is that more restrictive with the use? So when you were talking about the PV areas with the less than 125-foot frontage, that was less restrictive back then. We've gotten more restrictive since then?
It's gotten restricted, more restrictive now with that's why we need a conservation area to offset the development.
Okay, so does that comparison across the street, does that matter then, if that was developed prior to this increased restriction?
That would be a question for the planner.
It's a pre-existing condition, is basically, I'll let the planner answer.
No, it matters in terms of the existing character. So if their existing character is 125 feet across the street, it is not a substantial detriment.
Across the street, there's 500 feet from me. My property
From
is
you,
500.
I agree.
Right, so I'm also part of that area.
Agreed.
Why do I matter less than other people?
You don't matter less, you
Okay.
just matter differently, that's all.
Right, okay, so I'm just saying, why aren't we adhering to what the frontage requirements or the width requirements are?
We believe this is a better planning alternative than building a new street and having additional
We already have a street.
disturbance.
We have a street that accesses all that property back there too.
Well, the testimony that was provided was an alternative site plan would have included a new roadway and different development, and we believe that what we're proposing tonight is a better
I
plan.
understand it's probably like the least best alternative too, but we have a street that goes to that property. It connects all the way back through there. So why are we trying to cluster 6 houses and apply for variances when 4 houses up there might do and then 2 houses in the back, if that's really what you're going for?
Again, the testimony we provide is that this plan, we believe, is the best plan.
And then all of that property that you're talking about is apparently listed as a critical habitat, emergent grassland, forest, and forested wetland. Is there any plan for that?
There are wetlands and habitat area within that
I'm
three
referring
major
to
lot.
That whole area that you're proposing to build on is on this map, marked as that.
And which map are you referring to?
One of these township maps I printed out when I was looking through it. It's a conservation plan map.
So there are areas on the property which were identified by Pondlands for preservation is for habitat. There are areas of wetlands and transition areas which are shown on the plan. So all those will be restricted. So no development is proposed in any of those areas.
That's the whole property that you're looking at. That's my concern.
So I'm not sure what that map is.
It's on the township website. Those are my concerns. I've just, from an environmental standpoint, I feel like the land's already been clear cut in the back there, and it just seems kind of convenient that we can go and clear cut the rest of it. after.
So right now,
This may make it easier. So what happens is that there's something called outside agency approvals. So one of them, well, two of them, DEP and then Pinelands. So what you may be looking at is a Pinelands conservation map. So whenever they have to cut anything down, they have to get approval by Pinelands to make sure that what they're cutting into is not in that conservation area. So I wouldn't say like, we're the ultimate arbiter. I would say that Pinelands kind of is the ultimate arbiter of where you can cut into the tree areas, how much buffer is required. So they're kind of like the ultimate authority in determining what these guys can and can't do. So what you're looking at may be a conservation easement map, and they would have already have had to either get approval from Pinelands in order to bring an application like this, or they're waiting on the approval from the
Is that the
Pinelands.
approval from 2000, the 24-year-old approval?
Right. So is that the one that?
as part of that approval, the original approval, there were areas that were dedicated as wildlife, as habitat preservation. It's not in this development. It's an area deeper and farther to the west. There is an area that was identified by Pinelands as habitat and is being preserved.
Gotcha. And you guys, under oath, certify that you're comporting with all the conservation requirements that Pinelands are requesting of you?
Yes, and as noted, this will need to go back to Pinelands, should it get approval by board after any plans are finalized per the township professionals. We will then need to go back to the Pinelands and get a final sign-off from them as well.
Yeah, we're not the last word on these things. There are county agencies and state agencies that they will have to get approval for if we would approve a project like this.
That sounds like fun.
Also,
Don't envy you.
well, I'll tell you, I don't envy them going back to the Pinelands. They're kind of tough to deal with. But the gentlemen are right, that if that was approved here tonight, and they have to reapply to the Pinelands, and if they get a letter of concern from the Pinelands, they'd have to come back in front of us.
Yeah.
If the letter says no concern, they're okay with it, it's okay. The
Is
final
that something
factor on
where
that.
we get notified
Yeah, so
too?
what's going to happen is if the Pinelands basically comes back and says, I don't like this, no go, then they basically have to redo their entire application, come back and take in, renotice the whole area and take into consideration whatever Pinelands concerns are.
Okay.
So it's kind of a checks and balancing system, at least when it comes down to the conservation areas.
I just want it to be done, right.
No, that's, I'm just, it's easier if I just explain this sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else come forward to ask questions of?
All right, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please state your name and spell your last for the record.
My name is George Lindy. Last name is Linde. I live at 526 Getz Lane. Thank you. One of the questions I have is, that retention pond in the far top left corner, is that right next to my driveway?
That is along the edge of the property.
That is
So-
the very, very edge. There's a telephone pole right there, correct?
Have to look at the plans to
Because making the turn is already kind of tough. Making that turn with that retention pond there might be worse. Is there a way it could be moved to the other side, maybe?
We can take a look. There is, the retention pond is entirely within the property. So it is not within the right-of-way or any adjacent property. It's entirely within the property. We can review if there's any way to shift that slightly, but we need to take a look at that because there are spacing requirements between various facilities. But we can see if we see as much as we can to see if we can shift that.
Yeah, because my worry is, the other worry is if that retention pond overflows, my driveway's flooded and I can't get out.
Right, so that is design, that will be reviewed with the engineer. All these are designed to infiltrate and also designed, we do modeling calculations, show what happens, where to overflow, where would it go, and to make sure that that's not going to cause an impact.
Yeah, and just to keep maybe put your mind at ease a little bit. This is rather deceptive because it's kind of a large plan.
Yeah.
So that has to meet all the setback requirements and everything like that. So it's not in the roadway or anything like that. There's still a setback requirement for that.
Okay.
But if the applicant's willing to work with you as
Yeah,
a property owner.
That'd
and-
make me feel a little bit better.
Right, yeah.
Because I worry about the flooding
Yeah,
part
it's,
especially.
the map's is a little deceptive because it's a big
Yeah.
map and it's,
Yeah, it's hard to tell from here, so.
Yeah.
Man, but that whole link right along that's my driveway going to my house.
well, and that may actually improve the water situation at that end because it is based upon the new standards, yeah.
Well, I'm more worried about, because right now, there's a lot of woods that are still there, or what's left of woods.
Yeah.
And it's soaking up whatever water we can. Once those woods are gone and there's grass there, how much is going to be, retained by the, yeah, so that's what I'm worried about.
Let him answer that.
Yeah, this storm design was designed per the current NJDP standards, which requires us to manage for what they call a 100-year storm, which is a storm that has what is statistically 1 in 100% chance, 1% chance of occurring in any year. And they're also basing that on their projected rainfall for the year 2100, where they're forecasting, an increase in rainfall based on climate change. So these are designed based on those much, much larger rainfalls. So that's what's contributing to the size of these basins. They're not designed for today's storms. They're designed for the future predicted 100-year storm events.
That's kind of what I was worried about, because Sandy was a bugger. The other thing I worry about, we talked about the retention, the drainage along the road. Is there any plans to, because it looks like it's going to literally stop at my driveway. Is there anything to make sure that we don't have problems getting on and off our dirt road to that?
So that we discussed that previously, that we will make sure that, that interface between the proposed road, improved paved road, and existing driveways and existing, marginally improved road will be coordinated with the township to make sure that everyone, that is designed properly.
Okay. And these are two-story houses that are yet to be developed. It depends on the person buying the lot, you said?
Correct.
So there would be 2 stories, there'd be setback, 50 feet from the road?
They'll comply with all of the setback requirements without asking for any setback variances. So the footprint may change slightly, but they'll still conform with all the setback requirements, or they'll need to come back to the board for a variance.
Okay. All right, yeah, because my worry is the house looks like it's very close to my driveway as well. So I'll be driving down the driveway, waking them up with my horses at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they'll be really upset that I'm, hearing horses wandering in a truck going down their road. So is there?
And the scale can be deceiving
because
it is.
The sounds and stuff.
It can be deceiving, the scale, because it is, a large area
Right.
pulling up on the plan.
Yeah,
so.
I've walked that property. I'm there every day. Matter of fact, I just blew all the leaves a few minutes ago.
All right, the questions, you asked the question was answered.
Okay.
I'd like to move on if anyone else has any questions, unless you have any others, sir.
Now, the only other question I have is, do we have any more time in the future to be able to, if we have additional questions, to be able to ask them?
After we're finished with the direct questions, then we will have an open questions or comments.
Okay, that's not what I meant. I'm sorry if you
Right,
misunderstood.
I think
I'm
you
saying
meant
in the future
after the.
time, like-
So what you can do is that if you can, there's 2 things you can do, right?
Okay.
Number one, you can reach out directly to the applicant to open up a dialogue with them, express your concerns
Sure.
afterwards, because they still have to go through resolution compliance and the whole 9 yards, right?
Okay.
So, and Pinelands, and there's a lot more to it. This is kind of just the beginning phase of it, right? A lot of people think it's the final phase. This is actually the opening stages of it. Alternatively, if they're in the process of building the road, you can coordinate with the township engineer to make sure that all your concerns are being heard, right? So, so think of it kind of as just opening a dialogue between the parties that are involved in this to make sure that all your concerns are being addressed.
Okay, yeah,
All right.
the reason why I'm asking is because we were on vacation, we came back, and I had 3 days' notice to find out about this. I had no idea this was going to happen
Yeah.
until Saturday.
It's a 10-day notice standard, so you probably got it in the mail and you got back from vacation. You know.
Yeah, but they've had much longer than 10 days. so
Well, the
that's-
statutory requirement's 10 days notice, right? What you can do is that these documents are also public documents as well. So if you have any concerns, 6 months from now, you can either open request them or contact the township and see where they're at within the process. You know, so it's not, there's no secret to it.
No, no,
It's just opening a dialogue between the parties that you need
I
to be
was
heard.
just afraid that
Yeah.
this was like, okay, you're
No,
deciding
no,
tonight, so.
that's, no.
And how do we get that information, and where would I go?
Yeah, you just call up the township clerk, and whatever questions you have, you can ask her, and she'll coordinate with you.
And you can also look at plans on the website. They're there,
Okay.
they're posted, so you can look at them anytime.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You got it.
Anyone else like to ask any specific questions of these two gentlemen?
You got it.
I've got one of the same questions.
Excuse me.
Gentlemen.
We
One of
have
the-
a process.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Robert Forlenza.
All right.
Last name, Forlenza.
Yeah. And your
And your
address?
address, please.
316 Toms River Road. Now, my wife's and our property is at the northeast corner of this plan we're currently looking at. That square there they're showing, just off of it. Now, we're a little farther back, and basically it's called an infiltration pond, apparently. We're not even sure what that is. First of all, this seems very unorthodox to me, this sort of a development. We don't even, I don't know if there's any other developments like this in Jackson. I don't know if you folks might know the answer to that, but
There are quite a few, sir.
there are, with the now known as infiltration basins. Now,
Ask questions
yes,
of the
infiltration
engineer,
basins.
please.
Now, I was in the engineering field for a long time, I'm a land surveyor, but I've been retired for 25 years. I've never heard of an infiltration basin. Now, I've researched it a little bit. There are some things involved with that, correct? Some maintenance. Apparently, these are infiltration basins are due to the requirements of the Pinelands Commission. Is that correct?
It's Township Highlands, NJDP, infiltration
DEP
basin.
as well. Okay. If it's going to happen, it's fine, but I just want to note that if this is going to be some sort of an eyesore, that we're
Sir,
looking at, or we have
sir,
going to have some sort of
are you asking
overflow,
questions?
perhaps. Yes. Would there ever be some sort of a situation where we would have an overflow of these basins?
So basins, again, it's infiltration basin, these are designed to manage the flow for these various storm events, 2, 10, 100-year storm events. Again, we're predicting, we're designed for these future storm events. So these are, most situations will have almost, as noted earlier, this site is vacant, it's mainly wooded and grass, there's very little runoff now. So we have to design this to maintain those existing conditions and actually reduce it so there's very little runoff under standard conditions from
Okay.
these.
Fair enough. So my question to you then, are there any other developments with infiltration ponds between each individual acre lot in this township? Do we have anything like this? Anybody know?
I think
All
we're
right,
kind of getting.
Hang on, calm
Yeah.
down. All right. First off, I'm the environmental chairman for the town.
It's just a simple question, really.
All right,
Is there one
so
other
he-
development?
Hear me out and be patient.
Okay.
Yes. This
Okay.
is the up-and-coming thing. It's been going on for a while. Off of Hope Chapel Road, there's a few cul-de-sacs where each and every house has them between the houses. These are,
Okay.
from my understanding and my eyesight, they're behind the houses. They're depressed.
Yeah.
They're usually, Mr. Portnoy, 4 feet. They're not really egregious.
Okay.
In my opinion, they're not
Right.
egregious, except when they're between houses. They cause fencing problems. But this is a standard that has been in place. I've been sitting on this board, I think, 5 years.
Okay.
You're going to see pervious pavement. It's being done in Monmouth County on major roads. Kozlowski Road, for example, by the Rutgers facility, that whole thing is porous pavement. So these are all things that are now standards, And to Mr. Portnoy's defense, not to testify to him, for him, whatever they're going to do, they have to take it one step less as far as the impact.
Okay.
And they're there. And to
Very
answer
good.
everyone else's question real quick, you have a development lot, and in my opinion, I'll call it a 5-acre lot, your anchor. He's consolidating all his anchor lots and deed restricting
Mm-hmm.
them, so nothing can happen to him. And then it's governed by Pinelands, and
Oh, yes.
with Pinelands, you have to ask permission if you like to use your own land.
I'm very
They're,
aware of that,
they're the
yes.
toughest authority in the state.
Well, this wouldn't have happened 40 years ago, but
I agree.
today's today.
You could have made it a dirt track if you wanted to, but today is today, and Pinelands is
Yeah.
going to be in control of that property.
Yeah, but very good,
Okay,
That's,
thank you.
And
you.
one more question, please,
Is this a question to the
concerning the same.
engineer or to
To
the
the engineer,
planner?
I'm sorry. There will be, now, I don't see it here all of a sudden. Now, I've seen the plans in the last 24 years that have been done. We had a cattle farm going in, what was it, 2 years ago? We're gonna have a cattle farm. I don't know if you folks are aware of that, but that apparently, what was that? That story is a whole story in itself, I guess. But we saw the plans for it, and they were never approved. There's a 15-foot easement that runs to the southerly, to the south of the northerly line here. It runs right by my property. It's the first, it would be lot, it's referred as Lot 1 on some plans, like 901, I believe, on others. I'm just wondering if that easement's still in there, and what the specific use of that easement is.
Sure, which property are you talking about?
See the far line, the northerly line, the extreme northerly line. Go to the northeast. That northeast corner lot, they call it Lot 1, I believe, or Lot 901. Yeah, I can point to it. Here you go.
What does that have to do with this?
Half of that lot was taken from us. We originally owned 2 acres in there, but there was a survey mistake made in the 1800s, and it was valid, and this came to be, so we lost about 100 feet. 100 feet by 400, I think. So I just wanted to know now if that easement is still existing? Is it drainage?
There is per the survey, there's a 20-foot wide drainage easement along that. There's a 20-foot wide drainage easement.
There you go. Now, that's just going to continue on, I guess. That's
Yeah,
a county easement.
that's a
That'll
county,
be
yes.
dedicated to the county.
It's existing
By the
easement, we cannot remove it,
Oh, okay.
that's going to remain there.
Yeah,
There's existing.
that's a title issue. The board has no control over.
So
Sir,
that if they fence
sir,
that.
Sir,
Okay, well-
excuse me. You have to speak into the microphone because it's being
Please excuse
recorded
me.
and the public wants to hear.
Okay, so that's a county easement, it's been there, it's been existing. So I was just wondering where the fence was gonna run there. The property owners can run it to the line, I guess. I'm not sure you're aware of that. It is a title question. I'll leave it at that.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
I can answer it better than you can.
Okay.
Anyone else like to come forward to ask questions of these gentlemen?
Seeing no one come forward, I move to close the public cross-examination.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now, would anyone like to come forward and just make comments about this particular project? Anything that may not have been answered to your satisfaction?
Seeing no one come forward, I move to close the public comment portion of this application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Our professionals have any comments at this time? Any questions from the board at this time? Would you like to make a closing statement, Mr. Alfieri?
Yes, Madam Chair. So you've heard the testimony from Mr. Portnoy and Mr. Tykina. We would request that the board approve the application as presented with the variance relief as requested.
Mr. Shea, anything?
I'd just like to bring this up to the board. So this is a simple subdivision, 6 lots. The only variances are for lot width and lot frontage. These are considered C2 variances by both the applicant, board's professionals. The advances that they have put on the record to advance is preservation of the environment through deed restrictions, open space through property conservation, that's E and G of the MLU statute pertaining to the same. They're looking to protect the neighborhood scheme based upon how they're constructing the development. They've indicated that they have appropriate stormwater management plans. As to the negative criteria, they don't believe they have any, and that they advance the master plan through open space preservation and transitioning development. So that is the legal test for the C2. That is what they've testified to. I'll leave it up to the board to determine whether they've comported with it or not.
Any comments from the board? Any motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this application with agreed to stipulations along with the approval of the variances requested.
Second motion?
We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Brezzi?
Yeah, before I vote, I want to just mention that our professionals, their professionals all agree that the requirements of the C2 are met, and we're not the final egg of this because they still got to deal with the pinelands, and with all the conditions upon them, I vote yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Riker?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tremor?
Yes.
Mr. Weingart?
Yes.
Mr. Wall? Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell?
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the
Thank you.
board.
Have a good
Before
evening.
the next application, we'll take a 10-minute break, please. Thank you.
where I've asked Mr. McFarland to have his staff check the calculations for impervious coverage for us. As Mr. Klee indicated, I think this is one you turn over to the applicant. The things that are important is that this is a warehousing facility that does not appear to have the ability to have large vehicles circulate throughout it. So I think testimony regarding the statement of operations, the hours of operation, the types of tenants, and the types of vehicles that are expected to visit the site would be important for the board to hear, given the size and layout of the application.
Thank you.
Now, here we go. All right. Ms. McFarland, because we don't know who you are and we've never seen you before. All right. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please state your name, spell your last, for the record.
Sure, it's Graham McFarlane, M-A-C-F-A-R-L-A-N-E, professional engineer, professional planner, certified municipal engineer, previously qualified and testified before this board a few times.
You're going to be testifying as both a planner and engineer?
Correct.
Okay. And the board accepts the credentials?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, the application tonight is pretty straightforward. You can see we have put A1 up on the screen, which is an aerial showing the subject property identified as block 2101, lots 31, 32, and 33, highlighted in, I guess that's an orange-yellow color. The property has frontage on Jackson Mills Road. The intersection with County Line Road, where that jug handle is, what we used to call the old S-curve back in the day before they improved it, would be just off the page there. The soccer complex is just across the street. Anthony, go to A2, please. A2 is the site plan that was submitted to the board in support of the application. This is the plan that was submitted just a couple weeks ago, revised October 8th. We had added some additional parking spaces for building number 2 to comply with ordinance requirements. When we made the initial submission, we did not have final confirmation from the architect on the square footage of the space that was proposed. We were able to get that clarified. So the application is proposing a total gross floor area of 28,650 square feet, broken up between the two buildings. We have a total of 24,435 warehouse and 4,215 square feet of office space. When we put those numbers into the calculators and run through the math, we get a requirement of 53 parking spaces required by ordinance. And this plan has a total of 53 parking spaces proposed, which does include a couple of EV spaces, so we got the bonus credit for the EV spaces, but the plan does comply with the parking requirements. You can see that access to the site is from one bifurcated driveway with direct access to Jackson Mills Road. Building number 1 is divided into 5 spaces. Building number 2 is divided into 10 tenant spaces, relatively small spaces. The site is not designed to accommodate tractor trailers. We would not have any tenants that would have a need for tractor trailer deliveries. We would anticipate, box trucks, small panel trucks, and things like that for these type and size of spaces. The property has a detention basin in the front. We do not have public sewer, so we have a septic system also in the front part of the property. Jackson Mills Road will be improved to 23 feet wide with curb in accordance with county requirements, and that shows on the plan right now. This shaded area here is the widening of Jackson Mills Road with a taper back to meet the existing pavement on both ends of the project. Trash enclosure, refuse enclosure in the back of the property, so that's screened and far from any public view. There is public water available for the project, so that will provide our domestic and fire service. This application does not have any variances, so it is fully compliant with ordinance requirements. We currently do not show sidewalk along Jackson Mills Road. Of course, that would be up to the board, how they feel about sidewalk, or whether they want the contribution to the pedestrian safety fund. We do have one design waiver requested for the application. This property, you can see the bold lines are the zone boundaries, and you can see right here is a distinction between a residential zone and open space zone. Your ordinance does require buffering to this residential zone. Based upon the size of the building, the ordinance does require, so would require a 25-foot buffer. We extend this line across. The ordinance would require a 25-foot buffer on this small piece of the property. You can also see the required site triangle in accordance with Ocean County Planning Board requirements. There's a very small portion of the property, right where I'm trying to point and hold steady, that would technically be subject to the 25-foot buffer requirement. However, what we have proposed on this application is instead of 25, we're proposing that buffer to be 10 feet wide at the front of the property because it is such a small area. Anthony, could you go to A5 for me real quick? While we're talking about this one item. A5 should be the landscape plan. And maybe zoom in down here from you a little bit. So what we've done with this application, again, you can see the intersection of the site triangle. We're proposing a 10-foot wide buffer here in front of the property. We've also added an additional row of landscaping between the curb line and the septic field. You can also see that the building is going to be set back 93 feet from the right-of-way line, where 60 feet is required by ordinance. The parking is set back 50 feet from the right-of-way line, where 20 feet is required by ordinance. And also, this is a part of the building. This would be, the front part of the building where there's no activity taking place in the front part of this building. So, in my opinion, providing that 10-foot buffer along the front with the additional row of landscaping, given that we have the curb line for the parking and the building set so far back, I believe that waiver is consistent with the intent of the ordinance, and that the board could grant relief to that requirement. Going to the review letters from the professionals, we have a letter from Mr. Klee dated September 30th, where he summarizes the project. He identifies the required and provided zone requirements, confirms our opinion that there are no variances required. The plan is fully compliant with ordinance requirements. He does have, he had questioned the parking that was provided on the original plan, but again, we have since rectified that. 53 required, 53 proposed. I talked about sidewalk along Jackson Mills Road. The board's going to have to make a decision on that. Of course, he comments on the soil fill and removal ordinance that is in effect. And then he does have some other technical comments that we would agree to comply with. Our sign does comply with ordinance requirements, so we are not asking for any waiver or variance on the signage that is proposed. Then we have a letter from Mr. Peters dated October 31st, where he summarizes Building 1 and Building 2 and just confirms the footages required for each of those buildings. I think we've got that clarified now. He also tabulates the zone requirements and indicating that we comply with all requirements. He just wants, I guess, a little more detail on the impervious cover calculation, which we will provide. As to hours of operation, I think we would offer 7 to 7, Monday to Saturday, as the standard hours of operation, unless there was any objection to that for some reason. Mr. Peters, of course, discusses the parking and confirms 53 and 53. Your ordinance does technically require loading spaces of 12 feet by 35 feet, and I guess just to be safe, we would request a design waiver from that particular requirement. although this property is basically a series of loading zones to service the multi-tenant building, but technically, I would say we might require a waiver. Mr. Peter also questions whether there is a need to provide buffering to the properties that are to the left side and the right side of the particular project, as they are residential uses, but they are not residential zones. They're within the highway commercial zone, so your ordinance does not require any buffering along the side property lines. Again, it does require buffering at that front corner, and technically does require buffering at the rear of the lot, as a residential zone does adjoin a property behind at its rear, and we do have that buffer provided. And then he does have some technical comments, some landscaping notes and whatnot that we would agree to comply with. This plan was submitted to the Bureau of Fire Prevention, and we did have an approval from them from February of last year. Again, their letter just says your application for the project has been approved by this office, indicating compliance with any comments or concerns of the Fire Bureau. That is all I have for now, but Anthony, let's just go to A3 and A4 real quick, and then I think I'll be done with my direct. So A3 is the floor plan for one of the buildings, and you can just see the typical arrangement of the units with the warehouse space, office, and a bathroom, and overhead door and parking spaces for each unit. And then Anthony, A4, please. And A4 is just elevations of the building, showing what's anticipated to be the architectural treatment for the building. Building height is only 20 feet where 35 feet is required, so well within the height requirements of the zone. Thank you.
What size vehicles are you expecting?
Well, they're not going to be tractor trailers. The site is not designed for that. So they would mostly be box trucks, cargo vans, small stake body trucks, things like that. That could be utilized and will be accommodated by this site.
The applicant's willing to stipulate to that?
Correct.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Mr. Brezzi?
Yeah, I have a couple of small questions. You said you had public water there?
I'm sorry?
Did you say you had public water there?
Yes, we do.
Are you putting in a sprinkler system?
I believe sprinklers will be required by code for these buildings, yes.
Thank you. The other thing is, you mentioned EV parking. Where do you have your EV parking?
Anthony, if you can go to A2. Right now, we have the EV parking spaces shown up here in the front.
Thank you. The only other question I have, did you review the lighting plan?
Yes. I don't have an exhibit of the lighting plan, but we did submit lighting plan with the application. And we do have a series of pole-mounted lights around the perimeter of the site and some building-mounted lights as well. Mr. Klee, of course, identifies the need or the recommendation for shielding to protect any spillage onto adjoining properties. We'll agree to comply with that comment.
Mr. Riker?
Is there any proposed fencing between the housing on the left and the housing on the right? Agreed that they are in the same zone, but how do we protect those houses?
We do not have fencing proposed right now, but I'm sure if the board wanted to recommend fencing, I could convince my client to install it.
So recommended.
Understood.
Anyone else up here?
I have a question.
We would 6-foot vinyl privacy fence.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Mr. Tremor?
Each one of these units, does it have a bathroom and a sink?
There is a bathroom and sink for each unit, correct? Do you know what size that septic field is?
What we have shown on this plan is oversized based upon our preliminary design. We haven't applied to Ocean County Health Department for that permit yet, but there's plenty of room on this plan for the disposal field.
Does Ocean County Health Department actually have an engineer who checks the math?
They have a staff that reviews the applications for the septic.
Correct.
design.
Staff that reviews it, but they don't have an engineer that checks the math.
I don't believe they have an engineer on their staff.
So we're going on the assumption that what you're doing is correct, because our people are assuming that what you're doing is correct. But this is equal to a 14-bathroom house, and you're putting what looks to me like a 2,000 square foot field in. It's been a big concern to me. I've done my homework now, and there's no engineer checking it when it goes here. So I have grave concerns of what this board has been approving, because it's not proper. That's 14 toilets, sinks, and whatever it's going to be going into a field that's at the same size as a 5 to 6 bedroom house.
Okay,
So I'd really like to see how we can get together and start checking this properly, because it's not being done properly.
Mr. Tremor, so here's, we're bumping into an issue here, because I think, and Mr. Klee, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they calculate the size of the system based upon how many bedrooms or toilets or bathrooms, or, I think it's bedrooms, correct?
For residential development.
For residential
Number of bedrooms. For this, it'd be square footage
Okay, all right, so it's based upon the square footage?
of the buildings, yes.
Right. So does that help you out, because it's a different?
No, because everybody's going with this whole flow thing, and it's more than flow. It's square footage and it's usage.
Well, I can run through it if you want me to real quick. For units such as this, for commercial space, buildings like this have an office component and they have a warehouse component. The office component is 0.125 gallons per day per square foot. These offices are 4,000 square feet. That's a very, very low number. The warehouse component is 15 gallons per day per employee for each of the warehouse spaces. For buildings of this size, the flow is probably going to be 1,000 gallons per day. Okay, that's basically similar to a single-family house. So it's not the number of bathrooms that drives the size of the disposal field. It's the type of use and the area, the square foot devoted to that use. And on buildings like this, it's a much lower demand than a single-family house. There's nobody doing laundry. There's nobody, running dishwashers in here. You don't have 3, 4, 5 kids taking, 3 showers a day when they're in high school playing sports and coming home and doing this and doing that and doing and doing whatnot. So the flow generated by these buildings is much lower than the flow that's generated by single-family houses. And it's not the number of plumbing fixtures that matters. It's the footage of the use and the type of use. And this plan will comply fully with Ocean County Health Department and the New Jersey Septic Code 7:9A. And that's what it is obligated to do. We prepare the application and the design. We submit it to Ocean County Health Department. We've done thousands of them in my office over the years. We fully understand the requirements, and this plan will comply with those requirements.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. President.
And either lawyer, correct me if I'm way off on left field here. No matter what we think, the formula you put forward, the final decision is up to the Department of Health and other agencies, correct?
Correct.
So
Wrong.
if
There
you're
was no
lying,
engineer
then-
checking it at Ocean
If you're-
County.
if I have the floor, please. If you are submitting them numbers falsely, whose license is at stake?
That'd be mine.
That's what I thought. So unless you're really looking to lose your license, you wouldn't be lying to them.
I'm not interested in that.
And they check these regularly.
Correct.
And then there's always the argument about commercial property and warehouses, and the amount of flow. And there's nowhere that near a house. Everybody knows that, everybody knows that. When we get into these back and forth where we don't have any say in it anyway, and because we may not like the system because how they check it and they're going by the numbers and stuff, the one held liable for this is you and your testimony.
That's
If
correct.
you go to court, you have a license, you'd be the one the judge would be listening to, not us. And I just think we should make that clear, that that's the agency and that's what we have to live with and Mr. Shea has made that evident to our board many times now. And to badger this just in front of the public, to make it sound like something that we can stop, we can't. I'm not looking to stop it. It's worked, and I understand the Department of Health has their people, don't know their titles, they check it, and they're going by your numbers and your license. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tremor?
So you're going by how many people per office? What's the normal scale on that?
Well, again, it's not the how many people per office, it's the area of the office, and it's the area of the warehouse. And for the warehouse space, what the SEPTA code tells you is you can design for the number of people that are going to be, working in that warehouse space. And for small spaces like this, it's generally one person per space. For small spaces like this, you don't typically have, 6, 8, or 10 people that are working in these spaces every day full-time. You may have one of these shops where you have 2 or 3 people working in there, but the other ones, you're not going to have anybody who's in the shop all day long. So the code does anticipate that. It allows us to take that into consideration, develop the design, submit it to the health department, and get the permit.
On the bare minimum standard?
I didn't say that bare minimum. I'm meeting
I'm saying that.
on meeting the requirements, on meeting the statutory requirements.
Right, which is a bare minimum.
Meeting the statutory requirements. You like to phrase it a different way than I do.
No, Mr. Bresci made it clear that they don't care, so.
Mr. Tremor, maybe if you, in all this matter, all these years that you sat in the background, never attended one of these meetings, maybe you could talk like this. But to sit there and try to bring stuff up that we don't have control of, that we do question, we may not do this process, just to impress the public, I think it's pure bullshit.
Gentlemen,
I think it's-
this is
Okay,
unnecessary.
all right.
Let's stick to the application.
Let's stick to the application.
Application only.
And I don't need allegations that we don't care.
Mr. Bresci, let's just do the application.
Mrs.
All
Chair,
right,
do
all
your
right.
job.
All right, all
We're
done,
denigrating
all done. So let me just preface it with this. As much as we go over this all the time, this aspect of land use is out of our control. We have Mr. Klee who does the calculations. It's based upon statutory standards and actual specific types and formulations of calculations. It's given to him. It's given to him by another engineer. Mr. Klee verifies it. That is the standard. That standard is then verified again by the county and the state. So as much as we would like to have a third party or somebody with an additional certification sign off on that, there just isn't anything like that. Not at the board level. The county level, at the state level, it's a little bit different. So I understand you want a heightened sense of scrutiny, Mr. Tremor, but it goes to practicality of there's nothing the board can do outside of Mr. Klee's review of this thing that we can implement, right? So that's why the county and the state has jurisdiction over these issues.
I don't question Mr. Klee. I trust Mr. Klee. I know he knows his business. I know Mr. McFarland knows his business too. My problem is the bare minimums.
Right.
As a board, we are allowed to ask for better.
Yep.
Our job is to do better. Not the same old way we've always done it. Things are changing. There's a lot of difference. Now that we're building more, the ground doesn't take more. As a professional septic installer, I did for 5.5 years, I understand the way it works, unlike other people out there in the world. So when I question it, it's because I've dealt with Ocean County, I've dealt with engineers, mistakes are made. I've been to many jobs where it's not that old. Yeah, we did it to bare minimum. We did not expect this many people in the building. So in my eyes, it's my job to request and try and point out we could make it better. That's what I'm trying to do. That's my job.
Understood.
And that's it. I don't question Mr. Klee. I don't question his credentials. I know who he is. I know what he does. He's very good at his job. My job here, as a volunteer who's here for free, to raise questions, maybe stir the pot a little bit, and get him to get his people to do a little bit more. And it's better for us. It's better for the town. That's it.
Understood.
And I apologize if I offended you in any way.
It's not meant that way.
I have a question, ma'am. Mr. McFarland, didn't you say you exceed some of the numbers for the septic system?
I said that what we have shown on a plan right now, I'm sure that it's oversized.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions
Moving
from
on.
this board? Moving on, thank you.
What else we got?
We have our traffic.
Ah, another one, we should just get Cots.
Him again?
I don't think you've seen him before.
I think we need the credentials here.
All right. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Scott Kennel, Kennel, with McDonough and Ray Associates, located at 1431 Lakewood Road.
Do we accept his credentials?
Welcome, Mr. Kennel.
Thank you. My office prepared a traffic study dated February 29, 2024. And as part of that, we conducted traffic counts on Jackson Mills Road, at County Line Road, on November 30th, 2023. And consistent with the peak periods, we did the traffic counts from 7 to 10 a.m. and 3 to 6 p.m. Basically, the two-way traffic volumes along the site frontage is approximately 824 vehicles two-way in the morning peak hour and 1,200 in the afternoon peak hour. Traffic projections were prepared based on the data published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and we projected approximately 35 peak hour trips based on the use and the size of the buildings. Then it was necessary to consider how traffic would be assigned to this property onto the area roadways, and given the fact that 195 is just to the north of this property, we considered 65% of the traffic would be oriented to and from the north, and 35% to and from the south. Consistent with the Ocean County Protocol, we analyzed to have a design year of 2034, and we utilized the New Jersey Department of Transportation growth rates, as well as considered site-specific traffic from 3 other recently approved warehouse developments along County Line Road. And in total, those developments equal approximately 650,000 square feet. So that site traffic was considered in our analysis. And then we surcharged the site traffic and analyzed the site driveway, and our report indicates that the morning peak hour, the site driveway will operate a level service C, or approximately 16 seconds of delay for vehicles exiting the site, and a level service D, or 26 seconds of delay per vehicle, well within the acceptable ranges that are considered by Ocean County Engineering Department. Graham spoke about the site layout, and there was even a turning template for a fire vehicle that they can navigate throughout the site, and that the site can accommodate box trucks and panel trucks that would be servicing this site. The site driveway has been designed at a location that we have in excess of 600 feet of site distance in either direction, where 500 feet is required. So based on the design, the available site distance, it is my opinion that the site driveway can operate safely and efficiently. That basically concludes my testimony.
Any questions from the board? From the,
Sure, I'll throw one out.
okay,
Mr. Kennel, do you believe the site as designed is the best it can be for traffic?
To accommodate the design vehicles planned for this site, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Peters?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Kennel, are you familiar with the Jackson Township Police Department memo dated February 27th of this year?
I am not.
If you could just address the traffic safety comments quickly for the board, so we have a record that we responded to their comments.
Well, as Mr. McFarland testified, along the site frontage, we're providing 23 feet from center line to provide an additional shoulder, consistent with the county master plan. One other comment he raises is regarding the driveway to the soccer fields. We are offset, but in the traffic industry, it's considered a positive offset. In other words, southbound left turn vehicles into the site will not be in conflict with left turning vehicles turning left from heading northbound. So it's considered a positive offset. And I don't expect there be many cross-traffic movements. Therefore, it's not important or relative to have this aligned with that driveway. So in my opinion, based on the nature of the proposed use, the use of the driveway for the soccer fields, that this is an appropriate design.
Thank you. Could you just remind the board who has jurisdiction over the design standards and access?
Ocean County Engineering Department.
Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Anyone here would like to ask any questions of these two gentlemen?
Seeing no members of the general public, make a motion to close cross-examination of the professionals.
Second that, Sullivan.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone who would like to make any general comments concerning this application?
Seeing no one come forward, I move to close the public portion of the application.
Second, Riker.
Any additional questions from this board? Any additional comments from the planning or engineering? Would you like to make a closing, Mr. Alfieri?
As both of my professionals stated, this is a fully conforming lot. We've requested a few waivers. We've requested that the board grant the approval, preliminary and final site plan, major site plan, with those requested waivers.
And Mr. Shea?
This is as clean as it gets, guys. So if you want to make a motion, there's no variances. I believe just one waiver, which is based on the reasonable person standard, and take it away.
I'd like to make a motion.
I'll second, Sullivan.
He's not finished.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion as a person that don't care, that's on this board for over 40 years. According to the licenses that testified, that they meet the requirements between the applicant's professionals and our professionals, between what our attorney said about it being compliant, and further testimony that they actually exceed the septic, and that license is at stake, and the other comments on a septic doesn't have their license at stake. I make a motion to approve.
I second the motion, Sullivan.
We'll have a
Mr. Brezzi?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Riker? Yes. Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tremor?
Yes.
Mr. Weingart?
Yes.
Mr. Wall? Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell?
yes, congratulations.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We do appreciate your time tonight.
Motion to close.
Go ahead.
I make a motion to close the meeting, Sullivan.
Second, Riker.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?